we're going to go to the NBA and one of the all-time great players and broadcasters. He is absolutely both. Has some interesting comments on the Bill Simmons podcast about Steph Curry. Here he is.
I love Steph Curry. Can you imagine if the bad boys was beating the hell out of him? Bill, can you imagine that? As much as I love Steph Curry, if you think that he could take those blows that John Sally, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, those body checks that they were putting on Michael and Scotty and myself and guys like that, you really think Steph Curry wouldn't break?
All right. That, of course, is the great Charles Barkley. Rob Parker, your thoughts?
It was a different NBA. It was a different NBA. And Steph has already had his own little, he's had injuries or whatever, but it was a tougher NBA. I think it would have been, I'm not saying that he wouldn't have been able to get a shot off or he couldn't play in the league, but it would definitely be a different vibe, a different situation if they played the rules that they used to. And I think that's what Charles is talking about. Because it made Michael become, Chris, a better, great shooter from the perimeter because he used to take the ball inside, right, and used to go at the basket and dunk and all that. He got smart because the rules didn't allow him to just go and nobody could touch him. I mean, it altered and made people change, and have to adapt to what was being called and the situation. And Steph's not a big guy. I know he looks like he's really tiny, but he's not tiny. It's just that the guys are so big in the NBA. I'm just saying when you look at him standing next to the other guys, he looks like he's small. He's not. So I get where Charles is saying.
Well, do you think? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think he would be a star? I don't know if Charles is saying he wouldn't be.
Yeah, he didn't say that. He just said would he be? He didn't say he couldn't play in the league. He just said he'd be beat up by the bad boys and the way that the Knicks and those teams played back then. I think he has something that the style of play would have definitely affected him, or at least affected a lot of guys. You know this, Chris. You saw it, and we talked about it before. Kevin Durant, when the Celtics, I would say the Red Sox, when the Celtics got physical with him and they didn't call whistles and didn't blow it, what happened?
Playoffs, right.
What happened?
Right.
Like fell apart. He struggled.
Yep.
That's the example I would use because for whatever reason they didn't blow the whistle. They let them be very physical with Kevin Durant.
Well, I think they did. I've made that point that, because people talked about Durant would just like be unstoppable in the 80s and 90s. Oh, this 7-footer handling the rock and shooting and all that. I've always said Kevin Durant would be a superstar in the 80s and 90s. Would he be necessarily better than he is in this era? No. And that series was proof that guys would be able to guard him. Now, he would do damage. He'd average 28, 29 and all that like he does now. But he wouldn't just be like a unicorn, like something we've never seen, like nobody can play with him, and all that because they were allowed to be more physical. Now, I also think, and this is my general answer for this thing that Barkley says, the superstars, Rob, I firmly believe this. The superstars of every era would be at least stars of any era.
I agree, and we've even talked about, Chris, that if Babe Ruth played today with all of because it's still eye-hand coordination. He was a hell of an athlete despite what he looked like. But if he had all the modern conveniences and trainers and ate the right food, Chris, and all the other, and had massages and masseuses to take care of his body.
Charter flights.
Am I right? Charter flights and flights, all that.
Period. They were on trains.
They were on trains.
Then,
no, it was all trains. So you know what I'm saying? Right. Like St. Louis was a West Coast trip, Chris.
Right.
Think about that.
You're right. Like, and even beyond, like you said, the weight training and the better equipment and so on and so forth. These guys, to get to the level they've gotten to, whether it's from Bob Cousy and Bill Russell to today, Steph Curry and Ja Morant and these guys, I think that the fortitude they've had, the mental toughness, there's degrees, obviously, but they've had to have mental toughness to some degree to get to the level they've gotten to, Rob. I think they would have worked harder and adjusted to whatever they had to. If Kevin Durant was coming up in the 80s, you know what? He'd have been more used to physical basketball.
And he would be tougher because that was the way that he's going to be able to survive.
He didn't. And Jordan, people say, oh, he only shot 32% from three, which actually is the same percentage as Kobe. But if Jordan played today, you would have to be out of your mind
if you think that he
wouldn't be a better three-point shooter.
Because, Chris, I brought up the point about him coming in the league when he became a shooter.
He wouldn't even shoot mid-range that well.
Exactly. And then he became a killer.
Arguably the greatest mid-range shooter ever, one of them for sure. And so I think Steph, Rob, look, this dude worked his way up from Davidson. This guy changed his entire shot, like as a kid, but he totally revamped his entire jump shot with the help of his dad. He was driven to be a great basketball player. Rob, he's got handle. He's got, obviously, he can shoot. But and Michael Redd pointed this out, and I think you would agree, Rob. I feel like anybody watching these games would agree with this. Steph Curry is not just a jump shooter. Like, Steph Curry is a great finisher at the rim. And he can finish at the rim. He obviously can score in the mid-range. He's got runners. Of course, he can shoot the jumper, the three-pointer. He's got handle. I think he's one of the best ball handlers, not only today, but that we've seen in the NBA. And so he's bigger than Isaiah Thomas was. Now, Isaiah was obviously an all-time great, but Isaiah took the beating. Why couldn't Steph take the beating? Gus Williams for the Sonics took the beating.
You know what I'm going to say?
Mo Cheeks took the beating. It's not just Isaiah. It's a lot of young, small players that were. Norm Nixon was a great player. Took the beating. Why couldn't Steph?
I think that the difference too, and this is just, I'm going to be honest. The upbringing, and I don't know, I would just say, has Steph ever played a game outside in the park? I don't know. Like,
probably. I think the younger,
I'm just saying, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. He's of that age. He's 35, Rob. Okay. So I think he was still playing. But you know what I mean.
But you know what I mean. There's a lot of kids who have never played in the park, playing next, trying to get on the court, and physicality and all that kind of stuff. Everything is coaches and controlled environment. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. And I think those are the things that make you tough. And whether or not you can do it, and I'm not so sure that a lot of guys have done it. That's all I'm would say.
I also think, though, in the regards to, and you're right, like I think today, Rob, the best players coming up today in America generally don't play outside, right? They're not just rolling up to the park. Yo, I got next, right? They're everything is managed. They're playing AAU year round. They're, working out with personal trainers inside.
They know who all the players are, who they're playing. It ain't somebody walking up on the court, Chris, you don't know who they are.
Right. No, I totally agree with you on that. But Steph, he's 35. Kyrie, I know, played some outside ball, and he's about 30, right? 29, 30, younger than Steph. So
only reason I think Steph is because of Steph's dad. Being an NBA player, and I just wonder how much. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm guessing. Right, I'm totally guessing.
Here's the thing, though, and I don't know if this isn't necessarily about playing outdoors, but two of the absolute greatest players we've ever seen, Rob, in terms of period, but also in terms of their toughness, right? Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Suburban kids. They were. Kobe's from Italy and lived out in a nice suburb in Philadelphia. Michael Jordan out in North Carolina, Wilmington. Two parents, nice middle class upbringing. Two of the absolute killers in the league. So this notion that you got to be from the hood, to have that killer instinct, and, you had to grow up poor to have that killer instinct. Of course, some people, sure. But there are tons of examples of guys that grew up with privilege. And Kyrie Irving, who has the most street game in the NBA right now, grew up 5 minutes from where I live in a suburb in New Jersey. I know his dad would take him to New York and he played in the playgrounds and stuff like that. But he also was out here, grew up out here. And so that I can't sit here and say that, just because the kid didn't grow up in the hood or something, that he's, he ain't going to be tough. He's not going to have toughness. So I think that a great player like Steph, who really had to work to become great, would do the work that he had to do and just adjust, right? Like you said, he wouldn't be in the league or at least starting or being a good player if you couldn't adjust to people playing you tough.
No, I mean, at some point, you do have to have that toughness. You know what I mean? Because it's such a small group of people making it. There's only 400 NBA jobs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so there's a lot of. It's like what we do. It's even smaller, Chris. You know what I mean? On a certain level, there aren't that many places to work. I hate for people to think that.
Oh yeah,
everybody. We talk about it right all the time.
Yep.
Like you think of there's 32 NBA. How many teams? 30 NBA teams. There ain't 30 national networks to go work. There's like two and a half.
Absolutely right.
Like do not get it twisted.
Maybe 3 beat writers on average in every city.
Right.
Maybe. Right.
I used to tell people when I was a columnist in Detroit. There's only 4 people in this city who do what I do, Chris. Who I write a sport. 4.
Yep. That's
totally 4.
True.
2 columnists at the Free Press and 2 at the News. That's it.
You're absolutely right. No doubt about it. Now, the hand checking, would be something for Steph and these guys to adjust to.
Oh, yeah. That's the style of play. But you would have to adjust. I mean, like I said.
And it's the same thing like the handle. Guys that back then might not have handled quite like these guys now.
Because they carry the ball. Even your mom knows that, Chris. She's watching going, that was a carry.
She is. Let them carry and don't hand check them, and they can work on their handle just like you.